My name is Clara, I'm 29, and my pregnant sister didn't just demand I give her my brand new car, she and my parents conspired to steal it and nearly forced me to get a lawyer just to prove I wasn't crazy. Before I tell you how I got the car back and walked away from my entire family forever, do me a favor and let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. It's nice to know I'm not alone in this. The first sound I remember was the clang of a fork hitting a ceramic plate. It cut through the low hum of our family's Sunday dinner like a gunshot. My sister, Jessica, 5 months pregnant and glowing with entitlement, pushed her plate away. She had a strange, tight smile on her face. "Clara," she said, her voice dripping with a sweetness that always put my teeth on edge. "It's so wonderful you thought of us like this. We'll take the car." Just like that. "We'll take the car." Not, "Can we borrow it?" Not, "Would you consider selling it?" Just a statement of fact, as if the brand new Honda Pilot I had just proudly shown them in the driveway was a party favor she was claiming. The mashed potatoes in my mouth turned to glue. My brother-in-law, Kevin, was nodding beside her, a smug look on his face. My mind just short-circuited. How did we get to this point? To understand the absolute, breathtaking insanity of that moment, you have to understand the last 10 years of my life. You have to understand my sister, Jessica. Jessica was the golden child. I was the responsible one. From the time we were kids, she had a way of creating messes that I, somehow, was always expected to clean up. As adults, nothing changed. She married Kevin, a man who seemed almost allergic to a steady paycheck, and they quickly had 2 beautiful boys, Leo and Noah. I love my nephews more than anything, but their existence became the permanent excuse for Jessica and Kevin's constant financial turmoil. They were always in some kind of bind, always one crisis away from total collapse. And I was their safety net. I'm a pharmacist. My salary is decent, but it's not infinite. Yet, for years, a significant chunk of it went to them. It started small. $50 for groceries here, $100 for a utility bill there. But it grew. I paid for the boys' sports clubs, their school supplies, their birthday parties. I remember, with a pang of regret so sharp it still hurts, using the money I'd painstakingly saved for a down payment on my own small condo to pay for Kevin's emergency dental surgery after he lost his job, again. "It's for the family," Clara, my mother, Carol, would always say. "You're single, you don't have their expenses. It's the right thing to do." And like a fool, I believed her. I did it because I loved my nephews, and I thought I was helping my sister. Through all of this, my one constant was my car. A 20-year-old, faded blue Honda Accord. It wasn't just a car, it was the last real piece of my grandpa had left. He'd given it to me right before he passed away, and it still had the faint, comforting smell of old vinyl and his pipe tobacco. It was the only piece of his inheritance I truly cared about. To my family, it was a joke. A running gag at every gathering. "When are you gonna ditch that junker, Clara?" Kevin would laugh every time I pulled up, the engine rattling. "I can't believe you drive that embarrassment," Jessica would say, shaking her head with pity. My dad, Mike, would just sigh. "That thing's a death trap." I'd always smile and say the same thing, "She still runs." But the truth was, I was saving. Every dollar I didn't spend on them, every extra shift I picked up, went into a secret account. An escape fund? Maybe. Or maybe just a fund for me. For the day I could finally buy something for myself that no one else had a claim on. The old Honda finally gave up the ghost last month, on the highway, in a cloud of smoke and a sound like grinding metal. It felt like a funeral. But after the tow truck hauled her away, a new feeling started to bubble up, freedom. This was my chance. And now, here I was, at the dinner table, the keys to my brand new, beautiful, safe, reliable Honda Pilot, a car I had paid for in cash with my own hard-earned money, feeling like a lead weight in my pocket. I had bought it with them in mind, I really had. I pictured having enough room for the boys, for the new baby's car seat. I pictured helping. I always pictured helping. But I never pictured them simply taking it. Clara? My mother's voice broke the silence. She was looking at me, her head tilted. Did you hear your sister? She said thank you for the car. The words hung in the air, twisting the reality of the situation into something unrecognizable. Jessica hadn't said thank you. She had made a demand. And my mother was backing her up. My dad just sat at the head of the table, silently chewing his pot roast, his eyes fixed on his plate, refusing to meet my gaze. He was a master of passive agreement. My mom, Carol, gave me a little nod, a gentle, encouraging smile, as if to say, go on, do the right thing. My dad stared at me, his expression blank, waiting. The silence stretched, thick and heavy, until I thought I would suffocate. I felt a fire ignite in my chest, a heat that crawled up my neck and burned behind my eyes. I took a slow, deliberate breath, unfolded my hands from under the table, and looked directly at my sister. My old Honda died on a Tuesday. I was on the I-75 heading home from work, listening to the radio, when a noise like a bag of rocks in a blender started up from under the hood. Then came the smoke, thick and white. I managed to coast to the shoulder, my heart hammering against my ribs. It felt less like a mechanical failure and more like a loyal old friend finally giving up the ghost. My usual mechanic, a grizzled old guy named Sal, confirmed it the next day. He wiped his greasy hands on a rag and shook his head, his face grim. The engine's shot, Clara. It would cost you 3 times what she's worth to fix it. He put a kind hand on my shoulder. She's done. It's time to let her rest. I thought I would be devastated. And a part of me was. I sat in the waiting room of his garage, staring at the wall, and thought about all the miles that car had seen. It had taken me to my high school prom, to my college graduation, and to my grandpa's funeral. But underneath the sadness, a different feeling was starting to bloom. It was a quiet, thrilling hum of possibility. For the first time in my adult life, I had to make a decision that was entirely about me. I didn't tell my family. Not a word. I knew exactly what would happen. Jessica would have a dozen opinions, all of them centered on how my car situation would affect her. My mother would suggest I just take the bus for a few more years and put the money toward a family emergency fund, which was code for Jessica's bottomless pit of needs. No. This was going to be mine. For the next 2 weeks, I lived a double life. By day, I was taking the bus to work, fielding texts from Jessica about needing money for Leo's summer camp. By night, I was on my laptop, deep in a world of car reviews, safety ratings, and financing options. I became obsessed. I had my secret savings account, the one I'd been feeding for years with every scraped-together dollar. The discipline it took was immense, cutting coupons until my fingers were sore, brewing my own coffee instead of buying it, skipping vacations with friends, packing the same sad turkey sandwich for lunch every single day. It was my one-day fund, and that day had finally arrived. I wasn't looking for anything flashy. I just wanted something solid. Something that wouldn't leave me stranded on the side of the highway. Something that felt safe. I test drove a few sensible sedans, but my heart wasn't in it. Then, on a Saturday afternoon, I saw it on the dealership lot. A dark gray Honda Pilot, only a couple of years old. It was bigger than I thought I wanted. It was a family car. I almost walked away. But then, an image popped into my head, so clear it was like a movie scene. I pictured myself driving, with Leo and Noah in the back seats, laughing as we headed out for ice cream. I saw the space in the third row, perfect for a car seat for the new baby, with plenty of room left over for strollers and diaper bags. I imagined helping Jessica, taking the kids off her hands for an afternoon, making her life just a little bit easier. Even in this moment, a moment that was supposed to be for me, they were still part of the picture. My desire to help, to be the reliable one, was just that deeply ingrained. The salesman was a nice, no-pressure kind of guy. He saw me looking at it. "She's a great vehicle," he said. Best safety ratings in her class. Safety. That word sealed it. I thought of my nephews, of the baby on the way. The decision was made. I walked into that dealership, sat down at the finance manager's desk, and with a hand that trembled only slightly, I wrote a check for the full amount. No loan. No monthly payments. Just the clean, satisfying transfer of my hard-earned money for something real. Something that was all mine. Driving it home was surreal. The new car smell, the quiet hum of the engine, the way the steering felt so tight and responsive. The seats were comfortable. Everything worked. It was the single biggest, most expensive thing I had ever bought for myself. I parked it in my designated spot at my apartment building, and I just sat there for a good 10 minutes, my hands resting on the steering wheel, a slow, wide smile spreading across my face. It was a secret joy, pure and undiluted. And I couldn't wait to surprise them all at Sunday dinner. I was so naive. I thought they would be happy for me. I spent the rest of the week bursting with my secret. Every time my phone buzzed with a text from my mom or Jessica, I'd fight the urge to just type, "I bought a new car." But I held back. I wanted to see their faces. I pictured the surprise, the congratulations. After all the years of jokes about my junker, this felt like a triumphant reveal. Sunday came, bright and sunny. I took extra time getting ready, feeling a flutter of excitement in my stomach. I put a bottle of nice wine in a gift bag and drove over to my parents' house. The new car handled like a dream. As I pulled onto their street, I saw Jessica and Kevin's battered old minivan already parked on the lawn, leaking some kind of fluid onto the grass. I parked my gleaming new Pilot a few feet away, a perfect, shining contrast. I took a moment, just sitting in the driver's seat, to savor the feeling. I walked in, and the smell of my mom's pot roast filled the house. Everyone was already there. Leo and Noah ran up and gave me a hug, and I swung them around. "Aunt Clara, what did you bring?" Leo asked, eyeing the wine bag. "That's for Grandma," I laughed. "But I do have a surprise for everyone after dinner." The meal started like any other Sunday dinner. My dad talked about his fishing trip, my mom complained about the neighbors, and Jessica talked endlessly about her pregnancy cravings. "So, how's that death trap of yours holding up?" Kevin asked with a smirk, stuffing his face with a dinner roll. This was it. My opening. I put my fork down and smiled. Actually, the old Honda is officially retired. She finally gave up earlier this week. My mom's face softened with concern. "Oh, honey, I'm sorry. How are you getting to work?" "Well," I said, unable to keep the grin off my face any longer. "That's the surprise. I bought myself a new car. It's parked outside." You could have heard a pin drop. Everyone just stared at me. Then, Jessica was on her feet, her eyes wide. "You what?" "I have to see it. Now." Everyone, outside. We all trooped out to the front yard. My mom and dad walked around the Pilot slowly, inspecting it. "Clara, this is beautiful," my mom said, running a hand over the hood. "And so practical." My dad nodded, genuinely impressed. "Good choice, kiddo. This will last you forever." I beamed. This was exactly the reaction I'd hoped for. I unlocked the doors, and the boys immediately scrambled into the back, shouting about all the space. I showed everyone the features, the backup camera, the sunroof, the heated seats. I felt a swell of pride so intense it almost made me dizzy. This was mine. I had done this. But then I saw Jessica's face. She was standing back by the porch, arms crossed over her pregnant belly. The happy, excited expression was gone, replaced by something I couldn't quite read. It was flat, cold. "It's very nice," she said, and the words had no warmth at all. Kevin opened the trunk. "Damn, Clara," he whistled. You could fit a whole family's worth of stuff in here. He glanced over at Jessica, then back at me, a weird smile playing on his lips. A bit much for a single girl, isn't it? This is a family car. The comment stung, but I shrugged it off. I have 2 nephews and another on the way, I said lightly. Plus, I like having the space. We headed back inside to finish dinner, but the mood had shifted. The light, happy atmosphere was gone, replaced by a strange tension. Jessica was silent, picking at her food, occasionally glancing at me with that same unreadable expression. I tried to ignore it, to steer the conversation back to normal things, but the feeling that I'd done something wrong was starting to creep in. We were almost finished eating when the clang of a fork hitting a ceramic plate made us all jump. Jessica had thrown her fork down. "You know what, Clara?" she said, her voice loud in the quiet room. "It's so wonderful you thought of us like this. We'll take the car." I stared at her, my mind refusing to process the words. I let out a short, confused laugh. "What are you talking about, Jessica?" "The car," she said, as if explaining something to a child. "Our minivan is a wreck, it's not safe, and it's way too small for 3 kids. Your new car is perfect. You're single. You don't have kids. You can just get yourself a little sedan or something." The air left my lungs. She was serious. I looked around the table for support, for someone to tell her she was being ridiculous. But Kevin was nodding eagerly. And my parents were looking at me. Not at her. At me. "Jessica, I'm not giving you my car," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "I just bought it." "But it makes sense," she shot back, her voice rising. "Why do you get to have the perfect family car when you don't even have a family? It's selfish." Selfish? The word was so absurd, so profoundly unjust, that it broke through my shock. I am selfish for wanting to keep the car I just bought with my own money? That's when my mother twisted the knife. She reached across the table and put her hand on Jessica's. "Clara, don't be so heartless," she said, her voice soft and full of disappointment. "Your sister is pregnant. She's emotional. Think about the baby. She needs this. You just want it. She needs this. You just want it." The words echoed in my head. All my sacrifices, all the money, all the years of being the responsible one, erased in a single sentence. They didn't see a daughter who had achieved something. They saw a resource that wasn't complying. I stood up from the table, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. My hands were shaking. I looked at the hostile faces of my entire family, all of them staring at me as if I were a monster. I opened my mouth to say something, to scream, to defend myself, but no words came out. There was nothing to say. I turned and walked out the door, the sound of my own footsteps deafening in the silence. If you're still listening, please do me a favor. Like this video and comment with the number 1 down below. It lets me know you've given me a like, and it tells me you're here with me on this journey. Your support is a huge encouragement for me to keep going. Just type the number 1, and then listen to what they did next. I barely remember the drive home. My hands were shaking so badly I had to grip the steering wheel with all my might. The beautiful new car smell suddenly felt suffocating. When I got inside my apartment, I leaned against the door and just slid down to the floor. The betrayal was a physical weight, pressing down on my chest, making it hard to breathe. I had expected joy, and instead, I had walked into an ambush. The siege began less than an hour later. My phone buzzed. It was my mom. I ignored it. It buzzed again. My dad. Ignored. Then Jessica. Ignored. Then came the texts. The first one was from my mom. "Clara, you broke your sister's heart. She cried all night. I hope you're happy." I stared at the message, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. I broke her heart? Next came one from my dad, the first text he'd sent me in months. Family is supposed to sacrifice for each other. You've forgotten that. Then Jessica's, dripping with manipulative self-pity. I can't believe you'd be so cruel to me when I'm carrying your niece or nephew. The stress isn't good for the baby. But I guess you don't care about that. And on it went. For 2 solid weeks, my phone was a weapon they used against me. It was a relentless barrage of guilt, shame, and emotional blackmail. I stopped answering calls from their numbers. They started calling from my dad's work phone. I blocked that too. I put my phone on silent, but I could still see the notifications lighting up the screen, a constant, flickering reminder of their campaign. They were trying to wear me down, to break my spirit until I caved. Every message was a variation on the same theme. I was selfish, I was heartless, I was a bad daughter, a bad sister, a bad aunt. I was putting a car before family. After a few days of silence from me, they escalated. That's when Jessica took the war public. It was a Wednesday night. I was scrolling aimlessly through Facebook, trying to numb my mind, when I saw it. A new post from my sister. There was no picture, just a block of text. Feeling so hurt and disappointed right now, it read. It's a sad day when you realize some family members would rather have a shiny new object than help their pregnant sister and little nephews stay safe. Some people have everything but aren't willing to share a single thing. Praying for their hearts to soften. No names. But she didn't need to use names. Our entire circle of family, friends, and relatives knew about her beat-up minivan and my single status. My blood ran cold. This wasn't just about pressuring me anymore. This was about destroying my reputation. This was a public shaming. The comments started rolling in immediately. Oh no, Jess, what's wrong? Sending you hugs. You're a wonderful mother, don't let anyone get you down. It was a masterclass in manipulation, and I was the unnamed villain of her story. I felt sick to my stomach. The real-world consequences came 2 days later. I was in the cereal aisle at the grocery store, trying to decide between Cheerios and Raisin Bran, when a voice cut through the air. Well, look who it is. I turned. It was Brenda, our old neighbor, a woman whose main hobby was gossip. She was looking at me with an expression of profound disappointment, her shopping cart blocking my path. I saw Jessica's post, she said, her voice low and conspiratorial. I just want to say, I know things can be tough, but you should really do right by your sister. She's a good girl, and she's got those 2 beautiful boys and another on the way. Family is all we have. I just stared at her, my face burning with humiliation. Here I was, being lectured by a near stranger in the middle of a grocery store, all because of my sister's calculated lie. I wanted to scream, to tell her the whole insane story, but what was the point? The narrative was already set. I was the selfish sister with the hard heart. You don't know what you're talking about, Brenda, I muttered, pushing my cart around hers and walking away as fast as I could. I abandoned my shopping trip, left the full cart in the aisle, and fled to my car. I sat in the driver's seat of my beautiful, comfortable, safe car, the source of all this misery, and I finally broke down. The tears I'd been holding back for 2 weeks came in a flood. They weren't just tears of sadness or anger. They were tears of exhaustion. I was so tired of fighting, so tired of being the villain in a story I never wanted to be a part of. For a fleeting moment, I actually considered just driving the car to her house, throwing the keys at her, and yelling, "Here. Take it. Just leave me alone." But then, through the blur of my tears, I looked at my reflection in the rearview mirror. My face was blotchy, my eyes were red, and I looked defeated. And that's when a different feeling started to push through the exhaustion. It was anger. A cold, hard, righteous anger. They were not going to win. I had worked for this. I had earned this. It was mine. And they could text, and call, and lie to the entire world, but they were not going to take it from me. I wiped my eyes, put the car in gear, and drove home, my resolve hardening into steel. The siege wasn't over, but I knew, for the first time with absolute certainty, that I would not surrender. Just when I thought I was at my breaking point, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. My first instinct was to ignore it, assuming it was one of my parents trying a new tactic. But something made me answer. "Clara," a cheerful voice said. "It's Sarah. You picked up." Sarah was my college roommate, one of my best friends in the world. She'd moved to California a few years ago for a big promotion, and we hadn't seen each other in person since. Instantly, a wave of relief washed over me. "Sarah!" "Oh my God, it's so good to hear your voice," I said, my own voice cracking a little. "Hey, are you okay? You sound stressed." "You have no idea," I said. "Well," she said, her excitement bubbling through the phone. "I have the perfect cure. I'm getting married. It's going to be a small ceremony in 2 weeks, but you have to be there. I can't get married without my maid of honor." The invitation felt like a lifeline. A few days away from Cincinnati, away from the constant pressure, the passive-aggressive Facebook posts, the judging eyes of neighbors like Brenda. It was exactly what I needed. I booked my flight that night for a long weekend, from Thursday to Sunday. Those 2 weeks leading up to the trip were a test of endurance, but the thought of escaping kept me going. The texts and calls from my family slowed to a trickle, as if they knew they were hitting a brick wall. I felt a sliver of hope that maybe, just maybe, they were starting to give up. Thursday finally came. I packed a small suitcase, parked my Pilot in my usual designated spot in the apartment building's lot, and took a taxi to the airport. As the plane took off, I watched the lights of the city shrink below, and for the first time in a month, I felt my shoulders relax. The weekend was a dream. California was sunny and beautiful. Sarah was radiant, and her fiancé, Mark, was a genuinely good guy who clearly adored her. The wedding was a small, intimate affair on a cliff overlooking the ocean. I caught up with old friends, laughed until my sides hurt, and danced until my feet were sore. For 3 glorious days, I didn't think about my family once. I was just Clara, a friend, a maid of honor. Not Clara, the selfish sister with the car. It was a taste of a life I'd forgotten was possible, a life free from their drama. My friend even pulled me aside at the reception. "It's so good to see you, just relax, Clara," she said, giving me a hug. "You've seemed so tense for so long." The flight home on Sunday night was peaceful. I felt refreshed, recharged. I felt strong. I thought that maybe the time apart had given my family a chance to cool down, to realize how completely insane they had been. I actually felt ready to face them, to try and have a calm, rational conversation. My plane landed around 10 p.m. I grabbed my bag, hailed a taxi, and gave the driver my address. As we pulled into the parking lot of my apartment building, my eyes immediately went to my spot. It was empty. My heart gave a hard, painful jolt. "Wait," I said to the driver. "Stop here for a second." Maybe I'd forgotten where I parked. It was late, I was tired. I scanned the lot. My spot was definitely empty. Can you drive around the lot once?" I asked, my voice tight. "I'm looking for my car, a dark gray Honda Pilot." The driver, a kind-looking older man, nodded and drove slowly up and down the rows. We passed under the buzzing orange glow of the parking lot lights. Every spot we passed that didn't contain my car made the knot in my stomach tighten. We finished the circuit. It was gone. My brand new car, the car I'd had for less than a month, had vanished. "I guess it's not here, ma'am," the driver said gently. I paid him, my hands fumbling with my wallet. I got out of the taxi and just stood in the middle of the parking lot, staring at the empty space where my car should have been. My first thought was a terrifying, hollow wave of panic. It was stolen. My mind raced. I needed to call the police, my insurance company. But then, a second thought pushed through the panic, cold and sharp as a shard of ice. I thought of the 2-week siege. I thought of their desperation. I thought of their absolute conviction that they were entitled to my property. A cold stone dropped in my stomach. It wasn't random. I knew it wasn't. My legs felt like lead as I walked into my apartment building. My mind was spinning, but a cold, terrible clarity was starting to cut through the panic. Before I called the police, I needed to be sure. I walked straight to the first-floor apartment and knocked on the door of my landlord, Mr. Peterson. He was a kind, elderly man who had lived in the building for 40 years. He opened the door in his bathrobe, his face etched with concern when he saw me. "Clara? What's wrong, dear? You look like you've seen a ghost." "My car is gone, Mr. Peterson," I said, my voice shaking. "It was stolen from the parking lot. Can we please check the security camera footage?" Of course, come in," he said, ushering me inside. His computer was set up in a small office off the living room. The security camera covered the entire parking lot, the image grainy and monochrome under the nighttime infrared lights. We started fast-forwarding through the footage, my heart pounding with every passing hour. We went from Sunday night back to Saturday, then to Friday. My flight had left on Thursday evening. The car had to have been taken sometime after that. "There," I said, pointing at the screen. "Stop there." Friday morning. Mr. Peterson stopped the playback. The timestamp read 9:15 a.m., Friday. The parking lot was mostly empty, people having already left for work. And then, a figure walked into the frame from the street. A man. He walked with purpose, heading directly for my parking spot. Even with the grainy quality, I knew who it was. The way he walked, a slight, almost imperceptible limp from an old construction injury. The bright green work jacket my mother had bought him for Christmas. It was Kevin. My brother-in-law. I watched, my blood turning to ice, as he approached my car. He pulled something from his pocket. It wasn't a crowbar or a tool, it was a key. My key. He unlocked the driver's side door, no alarm went off, of course, and slid inside. A moment later, the brake lights flashed, and he backed my car out of the spot and drove calmly out of the parking lot and down the street. He didn't even look back. Can you copy that clip for me?" I asked, my voice a dead, flat whisper. Mr. Peterson, his face pale, helped me transfer the video file to my phone. I thanked him, my mind a blank wall of white-hot rage. They had done it. They had actually done it. While I was across the country, they had used the spare apartment key I had given my parents years ago for emergencies, come into my home, taken my car keys, and stolen my car. This wasn't just about a car anymore. This was a violation on a level I couldn't comprehend. They had broken into my sanctuary. They had treated me not as family, but as an obstacle to be removed. I didn't call the police. Not yet. I walked out of the building, my phone clutched in my hand, and called a taxi. "Where to?" the driver asked. I gave him Jessica and Kevin's address, my voice as cold as steel. The 15-minute drive felt like an eternity. I replayed the video in my mind, over and over. The casual way he walked. The complete lack of hesitation. This was premeditated. They had planned this. When the taxi pulled up to their shabby rental house, I saw it immediately. My Honda Pilot. My beautiful, dark gray Honda Pilot, parked right there in their driveway, bold as you please. They hadn't even bothered to hide it in the garage. They were daring me. They were so confident in their power over me that they didn't think they needed to. Rage, pure and undiluted, propelled me out of the cab and up their cracked concrete walkway. I didn't knock. I pounded on the door with my fist, again and again. Kevin opened it, a beer in his hand. When he saw me, he actually smiled. A lazy, arrogant smile. "Hey, Clara," he said casually. "Back from your trip already?" Jessica appeared behind him, wiping her hands on a dish towel. Her face was a mask of smug satisfaction. I didn't greet them. I just pointed a trembling finger at my car in their driveway. "What the hell is my car doing here?" Jessica stepped forward, her smile widening. "Well, if you hadn't been so stubborn, we wouldn't have had to take matters into our own hands." "Take matters into your own hands?" I could barely get the words out. "You broke into my apartment and you stole my car." "We didn't steal anything," Kevin scoffed. "We just took what you should have given us in the first place." He took a sip of his beer. "And we didn't break in. Your parents let us borrow the key." The confirmation that my parents were complicit felt like a physical blow. Of course they were. Then, Kevin's smug expression shifted into something cunning. He reached into the pocket of his jeans and pulled out a crumpled piece of notebook paper. He held it up. "Besides," he said, his voice dripping with false sincerity. "What theft? Here's the note where you promised the car to Jessica. A little gift for when the baby arrives. You just changed your mind, and now you're making a scene." He held the paper out for me to see. It was a handwritten note, scrawled in childish block letters that looked nothing like my handwriting. It said, "I, Clara, promise to give my Honda Pilot to Jessica and Kevin as a gift for the baby. Clara." The signature at the bottom was a clumsy, pathetic forgery. I was floored. This wasn't just a theft. It was a conspiracy. They had created a piece of fake evidence to cover their crime, to paint me as the liar, the one who was unstable and unreliable. They had a story all worked out. Jessica stepped right up to the doorway, her pregnant belly pushing forward like a shield. Her voice was low and venomous. "Go ahead, Clara," she hissed. "Go call the cops. Who are they gonna believe? A bitter, single woman who is probably just going through some kind of early midlife crisis? Or a pregnant mother with 2 kids who is just trying to protect her family?" She slammed the door in my face. The lock clicked shut. I stood there on their porch, the sound of their laughter echoing from inside the house, shaking not with fear, but with a fury so profound it clarified everything. They thought they had won. They thought I would crumble. They had underestimated me for the last time. I didn't go home. I got back in a taxi and went straight to the downtown Cincinnati police station. The sterile, fluorescent-lit lobby felt like a different universe from the ugly drama I had just left. I was done with family arguments. I was done with their games. This was a crime, and I was going to treat it as such. I sat down with a detective named Martinez, a calm, weary-looking man who listened patiently as I laid out the entire story, from the dinner 2 weeks ago to the fake note Kevin had just brandished in my face. I didn't cry. My voice was steady, my hands were still. When I was done, I took out my phone. "And I have this," I said, and played the security footage of Kevin stealing my car. Detective Martinez watched the clip, his expression hardening. He nodded slowly. "And the vehicle is at their residence now?" "Yes." "In the driveway," I confirmed. "Do you have proof of ownership?" I pulled the registration and the bill of sale from my purse. "I bought it, in full, less than a month ago. It's in my name." "Okay, Ms. Williams," he said, his voice firm. "We have enough to proceed. We'll send a unit to retrieve the vehicle and bring your brother-in-law in for questioning." I filled out the official theft report, my pen scratching across the paper in the quiet room. It felt final. There was no going back from this. I was formally accusing my family of a felony. And I felt nothing but a cold, hard sense of relief. The next afternoon, Detective Martinez called me. "We have your vehicle at the impound lot," he said. "Your brother-in-law, Kevin, has been arrested for grand theft auto." We also brought your sister in for questioning, as she admitted her involvement. There's just one thing. Your family is here at the station. Your parents and your sister. And they are demanding to speak with you before you press charges. My heart hammered in my chest. A part of me wanted to say no, to just handle it all through the detective. But another part of me knew I had to face them one last time. I had to see this through to the end. I'll be right there, I said. The scene at the station was pure chaos. The moment I walked through the doors, they descended on me like vultures. Jessica was sobbing, great heaving, theatrical sobs, her face blotchy and swollen. My mother rushed at me, grabbing my arm, her fingers digging into my skin. "Clara, you have to stop this," she shrieked, her voice echoing in the busy lobby. "You have to drop these charges right now. How could you do this to your family?" My father stood behind her, his face a mask of cold fury. "You put your own sister's husband in a jail cell," he spat. "Over a car." "He put himself in a jail cell when he broke into my home and stole my property," I said calmly, pulling my arm from my mother's grasp. "He's going to prison because of you," Jessica screamed, pointing a shaking finger at me. "My children's father. They're going to lose their dad. What about their custody? What about their future? Is your precious car worth that?" The hypocrisy was breathtaking. She was worried about her children's future now, but not when she was planning a felony with their father. That's when my mother played what she thought was her final, winning card. She started crying, real tears this time. "Please, Clara," she pleaded, her voice breaking. "Think about the children. Think about Emma's pregnancy. He made a mistake. It was just a misunderstanding. You can't let him go to prison over a piece of paper you wrote." And there it was. Even now, with Kevin in a holding cell and my stolen car in a police lot, they were clinging to the lie. They had repeated it so many times they had actually convinced themselves it was true. They truly believed I was the villain here. That I was the one who had betrayed them. Detective Martinez came over, his expression grim. "Ms. Williams, I need to know. Are you pressing charges? We have a solid case, but it's your call." I looked at my family. My sobbing sister, my pleading mother, my furious father. They weren't sorry. They were just sorry they got caught. They felt no remorse, only rage that their plan had failed, that their designated doormat had finally refused to be walked on. They would never change. And if I gave in now, this would just happen again, in some other, worse way. I would be their property forever. I looked the detective straight in the eye, ignoring the wails from my family. "I will drop the charges," I said, my voice clear and strong. A wave of relief washed over my mother's face. Jessica's sobs quieted. "On one condition," I finished. I turned to face the three people who had raised me, who had shared my childhood, who had just tried to ruin my life. "You disappear from my life," I said, the words falling like stones into the silence. "Forever. You will never call me, never text me, never show up at my apartment or my job again. You will lose my number. You will unfriend me on social media. As of this moment, we are strangers. I will drop the charges against Kevin, but in return, I want a divorce from this family. You agree to that, and he walks. You don't, and I will see him in court." My mother stared at me, her mouth hanging open. "Clara, don't be so dramatic." "I have never been less dramatic in my life," I said. "This is the price. Your son-in-law's freedom for my peace. Take it or leave it." My father looked like he was going to explode, but Jessica, through her fake tears, saw the deal for what it was. An escape. She looked at my father and gave a tiny, almost imperceptible nod. She knew a good bargain when she saw one. I turned back to Detective Martinez. "We have an agreement. Kevin was released a few hours later, though the police held him on a separate charge for resisting arrest, so he ended up spending the night in a cell anyway. I got my car back from the impound lot. It felt strange driving it home, as if it had been tainted by their touch. I spent the entire next day cleaning it, vacuuming every corner, wiping down every surface, trying to erase their presence. That night, I did something I should have done years ago. I went through my phone and blocked their numbers. My mom, my dad, Jessica, Kevin. Then I went on Facebook and blocked them all, one by one. I blocked my Aunt Debbie and a few cousins who I knew were on their side. It felt like building a fortress, wall by wall. When I was done, a profound silence settled over my life. The next few months were the most peaceful I'd had in my entire adult life. My phone didn't ring with panicked calls for money. My weekends weren't filled with obligatory family dinners steeped in resentment. My bank account started to grow. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was actually living. I took a weekend trip to the mountains just because I felt like it. I started looking at condo listings again, rekindling a dream I thought had died. I was rediscovering who Clara was when she wasn't just Jessica's helpful sister. About 5 months later, the peace was broken by a call from an unknown number. It was my Aunt Debbie. She had gotten a new phone. "Clara, honey," she said in her sweet, cloying voice. "I have news. Jessica had the baby. A beautiful little girl. Your parents wanted me to tell you that you have a new niece." "Okay," I said flatly. There was a pause. "Well, don't you want to know her name? Or see pictures?" "No," I said. It wasn't meant to be cruel. It was just the truth. Aunt Debbie sighed, a sound heavy with disapproval. "Clara, don't you think this has gone on long enough? It's been 5 months. Maybe it's time to forgive and forget. They're your family." The old Clara would have crumbled under the guilt. The old Clara would have apologized for having boundaries. But the old Clara was gone. "Aunt Debbie," I said, my voice calm and steady. "Do you know the whole story? Do you know that they didn't just ask for the car? Do you know that they broke into my apartment, stole my keys, and took it while I was out of state?" "Well, yes, but..." "Do you know," I continued, cutting her off, "that they posted lies about me on the internet for all our friends and neighbors to see? Do you know that when I confronted them, they produced a forged document to try and frame me as a liar?" She was pregnant, Clara. She wasn't thinking straight. She was thinking straight enough to plan a grand theft and fabricate evidence, I said. And my parents helped her. This was never about a car, Aunt Debbie. I would have given them the money for a new car if they had just asked me with respect. I had been funding their lives for a decade. But they didn't want my help. They wanted to take from me. They believed they were entitled to my property, my reputation, and my compliance. I took a breath. They didn't just try to steal my car. They tried to steal my character. They tried to make me the crazy one, the villain in their story. I got the car back, but I can never get that trust back. And I've learned that my peace is worth more than their definition of family. Aunt Debbie was silent for a long time. I could hear her breathing on the other end of the line. "So, this is really it, then," she finally whispered. "You're throwing your whole family away." "No," I said softly. "They threw me away a long time ago. I'm just finally accepting it." After I hung up, I sat in my quiet apartment, the evening sun streaming through the window. Did I miss my nephews? Terribly. Did a small part of me ache for the family I wished I had? Yes. But I didn't regret my decision. Not for a second. They thought I would break. They built their lives on the assumption that I would always be there to clean up their messes, to fund their mistakes, to absorb their abuse and call it love. They were wrong. And now they have to live with the consequences of their choices. And for the first time in my life, so do I. And my consequences are peace, strength, and a future that is entirely my own. Thank you so much for listening to my story all the way to the end. It means the world to me. If you've ever felt taken for granted or had to make a tough choice to protect your own peace, what's one piece of advice you would give to someone in that situation? Let me know in the comments below. And if you haven't already, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more stories. It really does help.